Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Welcome to
Willkommen.
Willkommen to Girls Gone
Girls
Spooky.
Gone Spooky.
Spooky. We're gonna like switch it up a little today, and I'm actually gonna go first again. Due to my poor lack of schedule.
No, it's not just you. It's our time zones that
Yeah.
mess us up.
I really just like bungled our timing this week, which maybe.
Mm.
Um, but so we're gonna go a little bit out of order this week, and then we'll have Amy go first the next two episodes.
Oh,
Boom.
I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
that's right. She's gonna be she's gonna be premiering. I'm really just her opener today.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Yeah. Um, but what the heck was I gonna say? Oh, the topic. Do you want to announce our topic, Amy?
Sure. So today we are talking about astral projection.
A
Ooh.
a.
Which,
Yeah, and I'm super excited about
yeah,
that.
same.
Um, did you do in your research, did you do any like background or anything like that?
I did a little bit, but I know in your notes you have some
Yes,
sources for that too.
a lot.
So go ahead
Yeah.
and
Okay,
just do
perfect.
that
So
part too.
I was gonna say this will be. I think this will maybe be good that I'm starting because I have like a lot of like little pieces I want to like plug before we get into some of the stories.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect.
okay, without further ado. Um, okay, so let's see. Where am I?
Are
Okay,
you
okay,
astral
okay.
projecting somewhere
I'm
else?
astral projecting. I'm literally astral. Okay, without further ado, here we go. Okay, so I wanted to start with a couple of I guess they're like peer reviewed, like they're considered to be case reports, but they're like submitted to like mental health journals and like health journals and whatever. So this one is called Astral Projection: A Strange Out of Body Experience in Dissociative Disorder. And so the only reason why I'm like referencing this is because in the introduction, they define a few things and also talk about like what a lot of the more pragmatic explanations are, as opposed to like your
Mhm.
spirit leaving your body, but actually attributing it to like certain mental health disorders. However, I don't actually believe that those things are mutually exclusive. So, for
Yeah.
the record, this I just want to lay the like medical foundation for some of
Yes.
this.
Yep.
So, thinking about astral projection as a kind of out of body experience or an OBE, which is how they define them. They are hallucinatory visual experiences that involve seeing the physical body placed in an external visual space. Many psychiatric disorders, brain dysfunctions, pharmacological agents, and altered psychological states are reportedly associated with these phenomena. OBEs have been linked to various brain lesions, particularly in the parietal and temporal regions, psychiatric disorders, severe emotional states like a near death experience, substance use, migraine, and epilepsy, but very few have been reported in dissociative identity disorder. So they
Mm.
present the case in this report of a 15-year-old patient who described an experience where he found himself to be floating outside his own body while he visualized his own body from a person perspective. And so anyway, they talked about like dissociative identity disorder, a dissociative fugue, which seems to be the
Mm.
combination that triggered this like OBE for this patient in particular. But I just wanted to like share this as kind of the like sort of foundation, I guess. So obviously drugs, like altered psychological state, any like external traumatic event, a near death experience, for example, there's so many different things that can trigger these events.
Mhm.
Um, and there are they get into a lot of like science about it, so I'm not going to like go into that super deeply, but
Mhm.
they talk about different sort of kinds of um, like kinds of visualizations for an out of body experience. So note that like in the discussion around astral projection, we're not just talking about like, oh, I was dead for a couple minutes in the hospital and I was floating above my body watching them resuscitate me. Like it's
Right.
not exclusively that. It's like you journeying as you're seeing through your quote own eyes, your astral being or astral self's
Mm-hmm.
eyes into either another realm or another place in on our planet, in our world, whatever. So
Right.
just kind of some like foundational stuff there. There was another one that I wanted to call out, which was actually a Canadian research article back
Hmm.
from 2014 from the School of Psychology, University of Ottawa journal. Like it's called Sensory Neuroscience, I guess. And this article was called Voluntary Out of Body Experience, an fMRI study. And so
Mm.
this I wanted to touch on really quickly because it talks a little bit about like like if they're tracking your brain waves while you're having an experience like this, an OBE, like what
Mm-hmm.
does that actually look like in your brain? So
Yeah.
this is like the little abstract at the front, and that's all I'm going to read, but it gives you a good sense of like what. So the present single case study examined functional brain imaging patterns in a participant that reported being able at will to produce somatosensory sensations that are experienced as her body moving outside the boundaries of her physical body, all the while remaining aware of her unmoving physical body. So this one sort of implied, I went and read on, I'm not going to regurgitate all of it, but that
Mhm.
she could see her own body, but she also could experience things not looking at her own body, but she was aware that she wasn't in her physical body.
Right.
So just it's like kind of a combination of the
Mm.
two. So we found that the brain functional changes associated with the reported extracorporeal experience, and we'll just call it an OBE, out of body
Yeah.
experience, were different than those observed in motor imagery. So just like imagining something basically in your mind.
Right.
So activations were mainly left-sided and involved the left supplementary motor area and supramarginal and posterior superior temporal gyri. No idea what any of those mean,
Uh-huh. Nope.
but the last two overlapping with the temporal parietal junction that's been associated with out of body experiences. So it's just like saying like these are all the parts of her brain that was lighting up and they're not consistent with imagining something or seeing it in real life or moving physically. The cerebellum also showed activation that's consistent with the participants' report of the impression of movement during the out
Hmm.
of body experience. So her
Interesting.
cerebellum was lighting up as if her physical body was moving, but it
Right.
wasn't,
Yeah.
which
That's
is fucking
interesting.
weird. That's so weird.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. There were also left middle, superior orbital, frontal gyri activity, whatever that means, regions often associated with action monitoring. So again, like her brain thinks she's moving.
Yeah.
So the results suggest that the out of body experience reported here represents an unusual type of kinesthetic imagery.
Hmm.
So that's like, obviously, they don't go on to say, like, it's paranormal, but
Yeah.
like, they
Uh-huh.
definitely say, like, it's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely
So
weird.
it's definitely weird. So I wanted to share that because I just thought it was so very interesting.
Very cool.
Um, so then I wanted to talk about some like real life kind of executions of astral projection that I just found to
Mhm.
be fascinating.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get into like some specific stories too. So this one is actually an article from Vice, and it's titled "Meet the Redditors Using Astral Projection to Escape Quarantine," which was like such an interesting concept, right? Because like
Mhm.
when you're literally trapped in your tiny apartment in New York City or whatever, like
Yeah.
what escape do you have?
Right.
So it's quite
Yeah.
literally people using these this ability, like training this ability and then using it to have experiences that allow them to not feel the like trauma and like I don't know,
Isolation.
yeah,
Yeah.
isolation that
Mhm.
that the pandemic brought about for many people. So so the subreddit where they kind of sourced all of these people is called Astral Army, and I actually pulled a lot of like my examples from that subreddit as well. And so this is like the summary that these redditors describe used to describe astral projections. They say falling somewhere between a lucid dream and a near-death experience, astral projection is the sensation of separating your physical self, keeping your mind awake while your body is asleep. Early records of the practice trace back to the Roman Empire, and
Wow.
experiences feel profound, and astral travelers have even claimed to learn things they couldn't otherwise have known.
Hmm.
And there are so many things that are like evidence of that. Like
Yeah.
people can meet other people on the astral plane. People can meet, like, there are theories about like astral wildlife, which I'm going to get to. Like,
Yeah.
so wild, some of this
It's
stuff.
cool.
People like, I'm going to get to one that like a couple government things that are like really trippy and like definitely very much like conspiratorial, but I love it.
Yeah, we're open to that here.
Yeah. And then people also who are like, oh, I went into the other room or into my neighbor's house and found out that they're getting a divorce. And then they
Mhm.
learn the next day the neighbor's getting a divorce.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like weird crap like that.
Mhm.
So, this is like going back to the Vice article. So today, thousands of practitioners not only trade success stories for consciousness expanding cosmic exploration, but have built a network to share techniques for traversing time and space using a toolkit available to everyone, the human mind. So Reddit's Astral Army is a focal point for the psychically curious to embark on out-of-body missions, they put that in quotes, to off-limits locations, including military bases, Wuhan, the Pentagon, and supposed hives of paranormal activity like Skinwalker Ranch. I'm going to go into all of those in a little more detail. The idea is intriguing. If you could go anywhere at all, what secrets could you learn? So a 19-year-old Wisconsinite who goes by Commander X told Motherboard via voice call that he started the subreddit motto projection for protection because he was intrigued by the possibilities of group astral projection. Here's how he says it works. The traveler creates an astral scape by visualizing a location in great detail. How do you visualize somewhere you've never been? Well, you use your imagination. Then you connect, this is where it gets like really interesting and like a little bit spooky. Then you connect this visualization to a sigil, an occult symbol that is energized with a certain intent. By meditating on this sigil and recalling it in the out-of-body state, you can use it as a shortcut to the desired location, mirroring fast travel in a video game, for example. There's even a sigil for hanging out together, like an astral group DM. I love it.
That's funny. Wow.
So funny. But that part kind of creeped me out because like a lot of these are just people accidentally astral projecting during sleep or, you know, doing it intentionally, but they've just trained their body and mind how to do it. This almost feels like calling on something to help you, like something maybe not of this world, which like scares me a little bit more. It's almost like you're trading, right? Like you're saying like, give me the ability to do this.
Yeah.
In exchange for what?
Yeah.
Yeah, like fill in the blank, my soul maybe? I don't know, not down.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Some of the things I read, I mean, this is very brief that they just some people on Reddit would be like, "Oh, I hope you haven't gone there without your spirit guides," and things like that.
Yes, yeah, totally.
So, I don't know if that's a similar thing, but when I hear spirit guides, it's like, "Oh, that's nice." But I guess we don't really know.
Or that your spirit guides like have to be there to protect you because you can't protect yourself from things that are on their plane, you know, like other entities of their type.
Yeah.
Even if they're not good entities, right? So very odd. So there's a very long history of out-of-body experiences as religious events with biblical explanations concerning the soul, or more recently, 19th century New Age spiritualism. Today, there's reams of discussion on faith forums about whether astral projection is real, allowed within a religious framework, or simply total nonsense. There obviously, of course, are like ayahuasca journeys and things like that I think are important to mention here too, because I think, you know, there were a few that I read on Reddit, for example, that I had planned to share. And then at the very end, it was like, P.S. I took LSD right before this. And I was like, okay, well.
Okay, it's a different story then.
Yeah, like that kind of discredits your whole thing, but okay. And maybe it doesn't, but like to me, it feels like, okay, well, that's a very simple, reasonable explanation. You took drugs.
That's the catalyst.
Right. So one particular group that has taken OBEs very seriously was the U.S. government's Defense Intelligence Agency, or the DIA. So in 1995, the CIA declassified details of the DIA's nearly 2 decades of psychic research, the $20 million Stargate project. So lots of stuff about the Cold War and remote viewing, entailing visiting civilizations on Mars and things like crazy stuff. So skeptics, of course, have just like completely dissed the project. But the archive is fascinating to, in particular, parapsychological researchers. And it definitely inspires a lot of Reddit's astral travelers as well. So going back to this Wisconsinite user, Commander X, most people are pretty basic astral projectors, he says, amid a baffling explanation that their missions are not necessarily representative of physical locations, but could be muddied by the interplay of how thoughts impact reality. His argument is that you never know if anything is objectively true anyway, which is a concept about competing forms of perception that's actually not as far-fetched as it first appears. So like what they... Well, I'll finish what he says. We choose to believe what we want to believe for the most part, he said. I don't think astral projection is any less a question of being real as the physical. And I thought this was really interesting because that's so true, right? Like we have no way of knowing that. I see that you're wearing a sweater that is the color blue. You also know that that sweater is the color blue. However, is my perception of blue the same as yours? Like we know that it's light waves and the length of the light wave, but like how we can never possibly know that ever. Right. Yeah. So it's like, how can we say, well, you know, so much of it is up to interpretation and your perception of like what you see, what you hear, anything that's a sensory input. So definitely just super interesting. What I thought was so cool is some of the Redditors who had claimed to infiltrate the Pentagon as one of these like astral army missions, and also the White House, reported running up against barriers that prevented them from exploring further, feeling physically drained. Or in one case, encountering astral Green Beret-esque guards.
Oh my God.
So it's implying that Stargate research basically helped the DIA develop defense capabilities for the astral realm.
That's crazy.
Wow. I was like, that is actually insane and also so fucking fascinating.
Yeah,
like
extremely.
The biggest kooks of all are definitely at the top tier of the U.S. government.
Yeah, I mean, they have to think of everything, I guess.
Yeah.
But I know you mentioned the Cold War, but like I know the Soviet Union was doing the same sort of research. So they probably thought they needed to defend that from them also.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's so wild. So I will share one of these sigils that is allegedly enables astral travel to the Flying Dutchman, which is the ghost ship of legend. So yeah, so there's so much more, and I could go into even more detail, but there's one other note I wanted to add from this article, which does touch on some of the like mental disorder or even like health issues that people have that seem to be linked to some of these out-of-body experiences. So there's a woman named Jane Aspel, who is a cognitive neuroscientist at Cambridge's Anglia Ruskin University. The name is spelled very weirdly. It's Angli. Anglia? It's almost like it would be Angela, but the L and the I are flipped.
Yeah, Angli. Angli?
Anglia. It has an A on the end.
Oh.
It's so weird. Anyway, this university, they told Motherboard that one of the first studies on out-of-body experiences was led by Olaf Blanc, who sought to determine whether people who had undergone these experiences had anything in common. For example, brain damage. Blanc discovered that a shared abnormality among 5 patients, 4 with epilepsy and 1 who suffered frequent migraines, in the temporal parietal junction, or the TPJ, which is a part of the brain which deals with cognitive function and perception. Suggesting a link between the TPJ and OBEs is a 2007 paper about a 63-year-old man who had intractable tinnitus, which, what a nightmare that would be.
Horrible.
Oh my God, that I get that ringing in my ear, like just occasionally. And I'm like, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah. Living with that forever. Awful.
Awful. So he was implanted with electrodes to alleviate the condition, and instead the researchers found they were able to consistently induce OBEs in the patient by stimulating these regions with the electrodes.
Whoa.
Super weird. But the very nature of OBEs, that they tend to occur erratically, if at all, means they're incredibly difficult to study in a lab just generally. Aspel goes on to say, we think this area is not functioning correctly, either because of damage, epilepsy, migraine, a stroke, or all kinds of reasons, or by stimulating it, you can cause it to behave abnormally. So any kind of abnormal activity in this area can give rise to an out-of-body experience. Now, she goes on, and there are other parts to the article, but I'm going to stop on this one here because I have 2 things to note. 1, even if that is true, that there is a physical something happening in your brain, just by default, that's allowing certain people to do this thing, experience this thing, does that mean that what they're experiencing isn't real? And 2, there are so many people on Reddit alone, and I'm sure all over the world who don't use Reddit, who can do this. So isn't it also possible that they maybe just have more control over that part of their brain than other people do? And then, again, leads you to the same question. Regardless of how it's triggered, does that rule out that it could be real? Like, how the fuck do we know?
Yeah, we will never know.
No.
What people are experiencing, like you said.
No.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that it's all attributable to a mental illness or a condition or whatever.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to just touch on a couple, like, just really interesting, like, quick Reddit, like, threads that I found. So someone mentioned on the Astral Army subreddit, their username is Leaf Hairs. Leaf Hairs. They asked, is there a name for the study of astral wildlife? Would love an astral safari subreddit. I'm happy to make one. So they basically say, like, are there any names for, like, official areas of study for, like, astral sciences, particularly regarding energy manipulation, astral botany and biology? Is there a way to observe microorganisms in the astral realm? Or also, I'm also interested in looking into observing subatomic particles while out of body. Whoa. So it's just, like, really interesting if you can think about, like, if someone, for example, could make a hypothesis about, because, like, if you can go to another realm, couldn't you also make yourself microscopic, like, and travel into a cell, for example? Like, what if you were able to make some sort of hypothesis based on what you see in the astral world, a scientific hypothesis, and then in the physical world be able to prove it? And it would probably be something that you'd never even imagined to be a fact.
Right.
If you hadn't experienced it like that. Like,
I know. There seems like there could be so much opportunity here if people ever are willing to recognize this as something that is actually possible. Or if the government actually already knows how to do this, like, let us know.
Let us know, okay? Email us at girlsgunswiki@gmail.com.
Exactly.
CIA, DIA, email us. So fucking funny. But yeah, I also just thought about that. Someone was like, don't expect astral fauna to be anything like what we see in the physical world, which makes me think people have seen astral fauna.
Right. Definitely.
And probably flora too. And I'm like, like, that blows my goddamn mind. Like, my mind is blown.
That's like in the movie
so
Coco.
crazy.
You know what
Yes.
I'm talking about with the big
Yes.
jaguar or whatever she is that's not quite a
Yes.
jaguar, but
Yes, exactly.
yeah, I would
No,
love to see
exactly
that.
like that. Oh my God, so freaking cool. So then it gets into like the government conspiracy stuff. So someone posted in it was deleted. Their username was deleted, so I can't share what it was. But there had been a post a couple years ago about astral projection, specifically in government buildings. And someone said in all caps, do not go into the Pentagon right now. The government has something there. The closer I got, the more it was mentally and eventually physically hurting me. It was unbearable by the time I was dropping out. I had to drop out and just catch my breath. It drained me of all of my energy. I just wanted to check it out. I wasn't trying to do any research, but I just wanted to see what I could do on my own. And I'm scared that they're aware that we can get in there. And so it sparked this like whole conversation about like, what the fuck? Like I had the same exact thing happen. Like we definitely know like this is just confirmation that like the government is aware of astral projection and that they've like taken, you know, steps to defend against it, whatever. So
Interesting.
But then the concern was like, well, what about people who somehow break through it or are like mentally strong enough to get through it and acquire sensitive information?
Risky.
Can they be identified? Can they be tracked down? Would the government somehow know if someone made it through, or do they just assume that their defenses are enough to keep them out? Like it's just so trippy.
Wow.
So trippy.
Very.
And then the last of the like kind of conspiracy theory ones are is also from a deleted user, but it was from almost 3 years ago now. And someone says, can someone here please go to Wuhan? And this was a super common topic because we were getting so much mixed information and, you know, calling it the China virus was wrong on so many levels. That said, Trump's bullshit aside, people weren't entirely wrong for thinking that it could have been a lab fuck up, which is like, there's a really strong case for that having been the case now.
It's too much of a coincidence that
the
lab is right next to where it started.
Yeah. And I actually, quick tangent, I just read an article the other day that some group of fucking scientists just dug up what they're calling a zombie virus.
Oh, I saw that
under
too.
the ice somewhere. And I was like, could we not? Yeah. Like, could we just really not, please?
Yeah. Let's just leave that for now.
So stupid. Like, come on, you guys.
Yeah.
So this person goes on to say like, hey, I actually personally kind of suck at voluntarily projecting. I've had 3 experiences, but they were all by accident, caught me by surprise, and I was utterly terrified by them. So the experiences ended as quickly as they began. I'm working on it and want to eventually do this myself, but I'm curious if anyone with more experience and knowledge of protection is willing to go to Wuhan and get the real scoop on what the fuck is going on there. We've been getting so much conflicting information, and it seems clear that China is either lying about a lot or if not just withholding a lot. So anyway, they go on to say, but then they go on to reiterate like, but again, go with protection. Like for anyone newer to the group who is more skilled but hasn't read up on it, we have a really strong sense that governments have people trained in quote astral security, so to speak. And I wouldn't be surprised if China had people monitoring the astral realm there. So anyway, it was like some people responded and were like, yeah, like love the idea. But a few people said something along the lines of what this user, Mossadegh, said was, as this community is heavily monitored, I will just say that you shouldn't approach this lightly at all. In fact, I recommend you back away entirely from entertaining the idea. Trust me and be safe. So a lot of people were like, maybe, yeah, no.
Yeah.
So not a lot of takers on that, but just kind of interesting.
Yeah, very.
Okay, so a couple of little stories, and then I want to talk about different methods for how to astral project, in case anyone is interested in giving it a go. So this is from SillyBig4250. And this was just 8 days ago. So this was really recent.
Yeah.
And the headline here is "Found myself teleported to Vietnam in 1981." Which, like, what? That's an unfortunate time and place. This is my first post on Reddit, and I really have nobody to share my astral stories with in real life. So today, I finally decided to give Reddit a real go. I'm hoping to connect with people who possess astral abilities, or at least are curious and willing to understand how parallel realities may work. Also, it's nice to document my astral trip somewhere. Otherwise, they'll all just die with me. This trip happened a few months ago. I was sleeping and lost in some dream, and then slowly I started to become conscious that this was a parallel reality and that my physical body was asleep in another realm. Whenever this happens, I've developed an ability to change my frequency, which does make my astral body fly upwards quickly. Everything around me becomes deep black while I'm levitating, and I'm moving really quickly. So I don't like fully understand that, like what they're seeing, but basically they have more control over their astral body, it sounds like, so they can actually move through like time and space, it sounds like. This usually will last for what feels like a few seconds to a minute of kind of traveling in darkness. And after a little while, I find myself laying in a bed and waking up in a small room that seems familiar to me. There's a white bed frame, some simple furniture, and an old TV that seems old, like CRT TV with a very thick back. I got up from the bed, and there was a woman in the room, and there were also small kids sitting on the floor. The woman walks towards me and starts to speak to me in a foreign language, which I couldn't recognize. So I changed my view to the window while she was talking, and I saw the street, cars, and buildings around me. So I told her, "I'm sorry, do you speak English? Where are we now?" And she said, "Yes, I do. We're in Vietnam, a country that I have literally never visited, nor do I have any relation to." I said, "Okay. And what year is it?" She was sort of shocked by the question and said, "It's 1981. And in my head, I was like, what the fuck? Did I teleport to the past? I said, "I want to tell you something, but I don't want to scare you." And so she just kind of continued looking at me. I said, "I think I'm coming from the future, from 2022. And after I said that, everything started to fade into dark. I lost access to the room, the woman, everything. Back to plain darkness, which was a sign to me that I needed to wake my physical body back up. And then the experience ended. This was a super bizarre experience, and I'm curious about your thoughts. Have any of you had something similar about transporting to the past or another country, or talking with people that speak a language that you don't understand?" And there were a bunch of people who, like, people are just like so fascinated by this whole experience, and like there's a lot in it that people say that's exactly the experience I have when I'm astral projecting, is like traveling through darkness and like having more control over your astral body. So there are just some things that are interesting, like whether or not you believe in whatever the experience is, it's just very interesting that there's so many commonalities in how people experience this phenomena.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, this one is from Grok23, and it's titled "My Experience Meeting an Entity in the Astral." A little bit ago, I made a comment on a thread here about the time I met an astral entity, and a few people messaged me asking to explain exactly what happened. Astral projecting always came natural to me. I used to do it a lot as a child, actually, and I had no idea what it was, just that it would happen to me sometimes. As a teen in the early 2000s, I read Astral Dynamics and learned to control it better, which I was like, added that to my book list. A few years ago, after a near-death experience, I began meditating a lot. And during an hour-long meditation session, I began to feel a familiar sensation: the vibration and loud sounds that occur just before exiting. When I exited my body, I saw before me what looked like a 1,000-sided jewel with an eye in each facet. I had met other entities before, but had always been scared and would zip back into my body. This time, I just stood there. It said, "I am Elam, E-L-A-M. I thought in my head, "What are you?" And it responded, "I appear in many ways." and then broke apart into what looked like gray aliens in the way that we envision them typically. I'm not too sure what happened next, but it felt like some kind of procedure. Months later, I was reading and came across an article about Aleister Crowley. He talked about an entity he met in the astral realm called Lamb. So same thing, but minus the E. That part freaked me out. And what also freaked me out was that it also looked like a gray alien in how he described it. Here's the picture that Crowley drew. So I'll share that on our Instagram when we post. So just very, very weird. And then he mentions that he's like, edit, like one weird thing I forgot to know is that my wife, who was next to me, also had a dream, quote, dream about what she said looked like aliens.
Whoa.
At that same time.
Whoa.
So
wow.
Very
was
weird.
She sleeping? Or was she projecting too?
I think she was meditating with him and fell asleep is what it sounded like. Because he goes on to kind of like, people are like, wait, was this at night? Like what happened in the comments? One thing someone said, Magenta Butterfly, spelled FLI at the end, said, make sure you test every entity you come in contact with. First, tell it to show itself, because entities in the astral realm are big on shape-shifting. So that's really interesting. So it kind of would make sense though. Like if you were an astral entity and a human from our reality was traveling to you, wouldn't you want to present in a way that is, you know, quote, extraterrestrial, but like in a palatable way, like the way we see little green or gray aliens with big heads, you know, it's like, okay, like that's off-putting still, like that could be real, but also is more palatable, I think, than like some fucking jewel with eyes all over it. You know, it's just a little more, digestible, I guess.
We can identify. Like everyone knows the little green Martian.
Exactly.
But we don't know some sort of astral energy.
Yeah, exactly. Which may not even have a physical shape in the way that like we think about it.
Right. True.
So, okay. So then this one is the most probably like GGS appropriate. And I just had to share it. This is from Commander X, actually, who Vice interviewed. They did a Skinwalker astral projection analysis. So this is like the typed analysis and like thoughts and conclusions. So when I interacted with the Skinwalkers at Skinwalker Ranch, I had expected them to be thought forms created by the conspiracy theory community. And this line alone, my jaw dropped, because I was like, this is what we've been saying.
Yeah.
There are thought forms created by a conspiracy theory community.
Right.
Like that is like, I believe all of this shit is real, even if it's that. Because like, who are we to say that's not real? That like a thought form can't become real.
Right. Yeah. That is exactly what we've been saying this whole time.
Wow. Yeah. I know. I was like, hell yeah, Commander, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what he had expected to see. It would seem that I am partially but not entirely correct. The Skinwalkers there appear to have been human at some point in the past and changed by some ritual. However, they seem to have been partially changed by the perspectives of others over time. Initial thoughts. I noticed about 250 to 350 Skinwalkers. That is so many Skinwalkers.
That's a lot.
Yeah. They seem to have a community and hierarchy similar to a tribal structure. They made decisions as a group.
Oh.
Yeah. The Skinwalkers line up with my understanding of them from Native American folklore in the following ways. 1, they seem to be mostly human or have been human in the past. Their auras also indicated that they were both changed by an initial ritual as well as continuing to change after that fact. So they become less and less human over time, it sounds like. 2, they can take on the forms of animals. 3, they're magically and physically very powerful. There were, however, some traits that they possessed that surprised me. I should note that skinwalkers in different areas likely vary, and this information should not be considered true for all skinwalkers. 1, they lacked physical forms and could only interact with the physical by possessing animals. Parentheses, these animals seem to be limited to specific ones and not just any type, end parentheses. 2, they were younger than I expected, being several hundred rather than thousands of years old. Which I suppose would make sense, I guess, based on when
the lore
America was colonized. Yeah, because I would imagine this would predate white people being here.
Yeah, definitely.
In North America. But anyway, just interesting. But hundreds could mean 600, not 2.
Right.
Conclusions. I do not think that the Skinwalker Ranch is a threat to anyone outside it. I would argue that the Skinwalkers there are not looking to expand their territory. Seems like an interesting place to check out for an experienced projector, but likely dangerous to new projectors. So that's the other thing about this one that I thought was interesting, is like, at first I thought he was implying a physical threat, which I think he was at first. They're not looking to expand their territory. But if these things are existing in our physical realm as well as partially in some sort of spiritual astral realm, that makes them even more powerful, right? So they could potentially hurt you as a projector,
right?
Mentally or physically, which that just freaked me out.
Creepy. That's a lot of
yeah
access to us.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was really interesting. Okay, so last thing I'll talk about is different ways that there are to astral project. And these are 4 of probably a billion. So the sigils, obviously, that is one already that I don't even think is mentioned here. But there are 4 that I'm going to talk about. So the first is mantra technique. So this is one of the best and easiest methods of astral travel, which is to use a mantra, a Gur mantra, which I don't actually know what that is. And I'm probably going to butcher these, but Waheguru or Satnam, whether inwardly or out aloud. Allow your consciousness to ride the sound current of the mantra to its destination. See yourself like a metaphysical surfer, riding the wave of sound or light if you are more visual. So that's mantra technique. 2, visualization technique. Lie on your bed and make sure you will not be bothered by the phone ringing or interrupted in any fashion. Get comfortable and then place your attention in your third eye, so right between your eyebrows. Visualize a blank screen and then visualize your place of destination. Your destination can be someplace in this world or in a higher dimension, can be anywhere. In the beginning, it could even be another room in your house or a friend's house if you feel more comfortable. The idea is to visualize your destination with all your 5 senses. See it, feel it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it. Make it so real, it is like you are not just seeing yourself there, but rather you are actually there. Remember the law that wherever your thought goes, your body must follow. Third technique is just before sleep. Go to bed at night with a deep focus on God or a higher power. Make this desire super strong. Allow yourself to fall asleep with this being the last thought on your mind. This is based on the law stated in Gurbani that where you go when you die is the last thought in your mind. The same is true when you go to sleep. For example, if you go to sleep watching the news, you might end up anywhere. So that one's kind of interesting. It's it could be God, it could be a higher power. It sounds like it could be any place. If you're doing the visualization technique right as you're falling asleep, you're going to end up in that place.
Wow.
And then the last one, the 4th one, is the suggestion technique. Go through your entire body and give it suggestions to relax. You might like to use a type of self-hypnosis or relaxation tape. When your physical, emotional, and mental bodies are totally relaxed, then give yourself the suggestion that you are now leaving your body out of the top of the head through the crown chakra. Visualize and see yourself doing this.
Whoa.
It's so interesting.
Very.
I want to try it, but it's also really scary to me. Is it scary to you?
Yes.
Yeah, it scares me.
I think the thing that scares me is I don't know how to come back.
Yeah, agreed.
No one has really said that yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I know. Weird, right?
I mean, when I have my seizure / migraine episodes, I often, actually almost every time, feel like if I let go, I will float out of my body. That's the biggest feeling that I have. Is like I need to be anxious and tight and controlled this whole time. Otherwise, I'm out of here. So maybe I need to.
Amy, that is the scariest thing I've ever heard.
I don't know. That's just the sensation that I have.
Like, do you feel like your mind would leave your body, or do you feel like you would like die?
No, I feel like my mind would leave my body.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
No, not dying.
I was like, don't let go, please. Don't let go. Hold
on. No, it doesn't feel like death at all. It feels like I would just be somewhere else. Out. Yeah. I don't know. It's very odd.
Is that when you're having petit mal seizures too, or like any kind of pre-seizure activity?
Yeah. Yeah. Simple partial seizures is what I have.
Okay.
When I've had grand mal seizures in the past, it's just like so overwhelming that I don't remember anything except these weird visual things that I get beforehand. But because now my seizures, I can still function through them, and like I'm very aware of what's happening. Yeah, it's just more noticeable now than it has ever been before.
Holy shit.
Yeah, interesting. But I mean, that's kind of consistent with what some of those studies say, that people who have epilepsy and whatever are maybe more prone to these things.
Well, hopefully you just literally never have a seizure again and you don't have to test the theory.
Fingers crossed. But maybe it just means that I would be capable of astral projecting if my body is
if anyone's capable, it's you. I mean, like, no fucking question. With or without the seizure to trigger it, you're definitely capable.
Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll try it if I feel bold one day.
Just don't do it alone. Like, wait till Dave's home. Okay. And like tell him what you're doing. And also like have me on speed dial.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
So I can jump in and pull you back from the astral realm.
Okay. You'd have to jump in, figure it out literally on the fly.
I gotta go.
Maybe that's Dave's like
what's going on?
That's like when a mom is lifting a car off of her child.
Literally.
It's like you suddenly know how to use astral projection because I'm in distress.
Literally, in a past life, you were my baby. So,
that's right.
There we go. I still stand by that. Like, that has never felt more real in my whole life.
That's like almost
I feel like I'm
like astral projecting. Sort of.
Yeah. No, that is very true. You're like hyper conscious of it. But yeah, that is true, huh? You do get kind of lost in it. Like, I feel like I wasn't even all that aware of my physical body at that point, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Very.
But wow. Okay, I basically recorded an entire episode's worth on my own. So
we could do a 2-parter. Like 1 week.
Yeah, I guess we could. Because I guess we could.
I could find a lot probably as well.
So much.
So
all right, well maybe we'll make this astral projection part 1, because also I don't force our listeners to sit through like 2 hours.
Well, maybe they'd like that. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe they would. Okay, but we'll spare them. This will be a part 1, and then we'll come back next week with Amy's part 2 on AP. And you know what? In the meantime, I'm going to do a little more research and I'm going to try.
Okay. I'll give it a go too. Back. Yeah. Do it because you're going home, right? So your mom will
I'll do it when I'm home.
Okay.
I'll do it when I'm home and I'm going to tell her.
Okay.
You know what we should do? Wait a minute. You know what we should do? We should try to meet.
Oh my God. Okay.
People have done that. People have met.
Okay.
So if we we'll talk about this offline, but we'll have to pick a place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm wearing to bed, all of those little details.
Okay.
And then we should try.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Let's try it. Should we do the pre-sleep one? I feel like that's I don't know.
Either that or pick a time when we can both nap at the same time.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay.
Okay, we'll discuss.
Exciting.
I'm so excited. We're such weirdos.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean,
love it.
I do too. We're open to everything. I think that's
we are
what it is.
It's a good thing, I think.
Yeah. I saw something
haters.
when I was reading, I don't remember where I saw it, but it was like some heading said, trying to turn the woo-woo into the wow.
Wow.
So it's
woo-woo.
like, not like, oh, woo-woo, you're so weird, but like, wow, that's cool.
That's so cool. Oh, I like that.
Yeah. It's, a good one.
Oh, God. I like that a lot. Okay, well, next time we will report back with more astral projection coolness from Amy, as well as our own attempt.
We'll see how it goes.
I know I'm going to get a call from my dad after this publishes being like, can you not do that? He's like, you're going to get lost in the astral realm. Oh. You dumb bitch.
Why doesn't he come along? We'll meet him too.
Yeah. Come along, Dad. That is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Girls Gone Spooky. You can send us your spooky stories, and please send us your astral projection stories to girlsgonespooky@gmail.com. And otherwise, we will see you next week. Stay spooky, friends.
Yay, stay spooky. Bye.
Bye.